In this segment, we're going to take a look at connection draining with an elastic load balancer. Now, what is connection draining? Well, one of the really cool parts about using the elastic load balancer is that you can have multiple hosts all masked behind a single load balancer. And as your end users connect to it, that traffic is distributed across the nodes behind it. And because the traffic is being distributed, you can actually take a node offline and the traffic just gets redistributed across the existing, or the ones that are still online. So that means that we can do routine maintenance, things like system updates and firmware updates, copy files, things like that, even backups. We can do that while the server is offline, but our end users are still able to get access. Right? Definitely a very cool thing. A lot of stuff that we used to schedule for after hours, you can now do in the middle of the day. So you're not working on Sunday. You can just do it right there even during peak time, as long as you've got enough additional servers to carry the load in your environment. Right? The only problem is, when you take a node out of service, when you take it out of the load balancing pool, if anybody was currently connected to that node, their session gets reset. They get moved to another server. Now, a lot of applications handle that seamlessly. A lot of web applications use cookies on the person's end, on their client. And so when they jump from server to server, it makes no difference. That's how like Amazon storefront is. They don't really care which server you connect to. Your cookies identify your session. But other applications may be a lot more sensitive about that. Like you might be load balancing a MySQL box. So you've already authenticated and logged in and run some queries against one. If you all of a sudden get moved to another server, you're not authenticated. And so you'll have to re-authenticate. Your end users will notice that. It's not an outage. They still have access. They'll just notice that they have to re-log in or rebuild their session. So if we want to try and keep that as seamless as possible, just taking a node out of service isn't a great idea. And that's where connection draining comes in. With connection draining, we say, when we take a node out of service, don't just yank it out. Instead, let it sit there for a little while. And we'll not send any new connections. No new connections to the node. But any existing connections will have a certain amount of time to wrap up what they're doing. And you can designate that amount of time, and it'll do that. Connection draining is turned on by default on the elastic load balancer, and the default window is set to 5 minutes. So when you remove a node from a load balancer, by default it will wait 5 minutes. No new connections will be sent to it, but existing ones are still allowed to complete for 5 minutes. If they finish in 5 minutes, the end user won't even notice that they get bumped over to another system because they're finished. But if somebody is working and they take longer than 5 minutes, then they'll get interrupted. But the idea behind connection draining is to minimize the amount of people that we affect. Right? Now, when you run the setup wizard for creating a load balancer, you get to pick whether or not you want to enable connection draining. But you can always change it after the fact. So let me show you that. I'm going to take one of my load balancers. Let me just switch over. So if we start at the AWS console, right, I'm going to go into EC2. And then in EC2, I'm going to go down to my load balancers. Here's my load balancer. And I can't really remember. When I set this one up, I don't remember if I turned on connection draining or not. But it's easy to check. If we just go down to our Instances tab, you'll see your instances. And I almost always just really quick scroll down to get to the instances. That's what I care about. But right at the very top, you'll see connection draining and whether it's enabled or not. And then it'll tell you how long the interval is. So it looks like mine is turned on and set to 5 minutes or 300 seconds. That's the default. So I must not have changed it when I ran the wizard. But you can edit that to modify it. If you turn off connection draining, when you remove a node from the pool, it immediately comes out. And anybody who had a session on that node, that session's gone. So they'll have to build up a session on one of the other nodes. Right? Again, not an outage, but they do notice the little interruption. But if it's on, we can then specify the time. Now, the longer the time, the more likely people will finish doing what they're doing. 5 minutes may not be long enough for you. If this is going to stop me from having to come into work on Sunday, then I might set this to 30 minutes. I might go really long to guarantee that everybody finishes their stuff, because I can drain it in the morning and then come in at lunch and do my changes or whatever. So you can kind of pick how much time you want it. But 5 minutes is the default. I'm going to lower mine just because I don't want to wait 5 minutes. I'm going to lower it to 30 seconds. So when I take a node out, it's actually going to wait 30 seconds, and then it'll remove it from the pool. All right? So I'll go ahead and just save that, and now it's in place. Connection draining is on. All right? Once it's on, if I want to do maintenance on a node, so let's say Web02 here. I want to do maintenance on Web02. So I'm going to go and tweak it and change whatever I need. I need to do some updates and reboot the server. All right? Well, if I'm going to reboot it, that's going to interrupt my users, so I don't want that to happen. So I can take node 2, and I can hit remove from load balancer. When I hit remove from load balancer, it's going to take Web02 out of the pool. Now, if draining is turned off, that'll happen instantly. But since draining is on, it's going to wait 30 seconds. So when I remove it, so I'll just say yes to remove it, existing connections are still allowed to stay connected. Nobody new is going to Web02, but existing users on Web02 are still functioning, and they'll still function for 30 seconds. So now they've got 30 seconds to wrap up whatever they were doing, and if they do, great, their service was completely uninterrupted. But if they don't, at the end of that 30-second window, they'll get bumped over to Web01. So they'll still have access on Web01, but if our developers haven't planned for that, then they may have a little interruption. They may have to relog in or whatever. All right, so we're good there. I've drained it, and I'm kind of stalling here for the 30 seconds. I probably should have picked something even shorter. But once it's out, now I can go and do whatever maintenance I want on Web02, which I think I'm SSH'd into in the background here. Let's see. Yeah, I'm in Web02 here. So I might do a series of updates, and so I'll go and punch that in, and so, oh, no updates. But I go in to do my updates for the system. Maybe I reboot it, right? So I go ahead and reboot that node. Oh, I'm not logged in as root. So there we go. So now I'm going and rebooting it. That node's going to reboot, but no users are on it. Well, assuming that I waited the 30 seconds, right? But no users are on it, so I reboot, do my maintenance, everything is happy. And then once I'm done with my maintenance, I just go and add it back into the pool. So I go back to my load balancer, I go to instances and edit instances, and I just add that node right back in. So I'm going to add Web02, and I'll hit save. And now Web02 is going to be right back in. Now it's rebooting right now, so it's going to fail its health check. But I'm not worried about that. I know that when it comes back online, it'll be ready. So the system's going to wait until it passes its health checks to bring it back online. If it was already online, it would actually come up very, very quickly as in service. But since it's offline right now, it's failing health checks, so it'll have to do the rest of the health checks to see it. If you don't remember what your health checks are set to, that's another tab up here, health check. And so notice on mine, the healthy threshold is set to 2. The default is 10. I've lowered mine. So let's assume it's the default. The default is 10. That means we have to pass 10 health checks before the server comes online. And the default interval for that is 30 seconds. So 300 seconds or 5 minutes has to go by before I'll bring that node online. That might be a long time for you. For me, I'm not worried about it, right? This was an extra server. I did maintenance. It can come back online in 5 minutes. I'm fine with that. But if you're in a hurry, you might lower it. And you'll see I've lowered mine. My interval is 10 seconds, and I've got a threshold of 2. That means it has to pass 2 checks 10 seconds apart, so it'll take 20 seconds to recognize that and bring this node back online. So it'll come up online a lot faster, and then it'll be up and happy, or as happy as a server gets, I guess. And I can see Web02 is already in service, and now new connections will start getting balanced over to Web02, right? So real easy to do that maintenance without impacting our customers. And instead of having to wake up early or stay up and do maintenance at 3 a.m. or non-peak time, you can do it right in the middle of the day, as long as you have enough other servers to maintain redundancy. All right? And if you're not sure, you can always scroll down a bit here, and it gives you a little bit of information as to whether you are redundant. And so we'll see, like here in US East 1A, I've got 2 nodes. I'm healthy. I'm redundant. Versus my other nodes where I don't have enough healthy instances to be redundant. But you can just kind of take a quick peek there. But usually you know right here from your instances. All right, so in this segment, we got a chance to see how to drain a node to do maintenance, how to bring it back online. It's pretty easy. Cool feature that wasn't always there in AWS. They added this one just, I think, a little over a year or 2 ago. So it's one of the newer options. Definitely useful, though. So take advantage of it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the segment. Stay tuned. We've got more Amazon Web Services coming up.